Next row. So the webinar that you don't have. Probably a big file though, so it might take a couple of minutes.
Folks, if you're joining us on Zoom, we have not started the meeting yet.
Carl, right? From New York. So I don't have New York's report's presentation yet. You emailed it to me. Might take a couple of minutes, but we can start with folks.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Before we start, I'm just going to ask Jeremy if he could call the roll.
Everyone, if you are joining us on Zoom, please remember to unmute yourself, acknowledge your name, and then mute yourself again. Let's start with Victor Swinton.
Present.
Thank you. Joan Body. Thank you. Amel Abzal. Sylvia Augusto. Joanna Bjorken. Esteban Chavez. Thank you. Christina Das. Gabina Morales Escamilla. Thank you. Mary Jo Eister.
Present.
You. John Fontillis. Nicole Huang. Zach Jacy. John Johnston. Daniel Kaminsky. Thank you. Paul Mack. Marilyn Melman. Rosie Moda. Sam Sierra. Okay, I see you. Oh, I see. John Johnston, you are listed as an attendee. I'm promoting you to panelist. You'll be able to unmute yourself in a moment. I'm sorry, Rosie Moda, Sam Sierra, Carmen Rivera. Thank you. Jennifer Yip. John Johnston.
I'm here. Thank you.
John, you do not count towards quorum. Roll has been called. Oh, I'm sorry, Julio Pena the third. You. There is no quorum.
Okay, as you heard from Jeremy, reading the roll, we do not have quorum. So there would not be any voting from the committee today, unless people walk in to give us a committee. But we will, allow the presentation to go on. And we will take the information and relay it at the next board meeting. Before we start, I just want to, introduce some folks who are here. I see Jim Morris from Parks, Carl, from New Yorkers for Parks. We have our district manager here, Jeremy Hoffa, my first vice president, Joan Body. Thank you for being here and our committee. I just want to, if I can, give, some instructions or rules as we go forward in this meeting. We will allow our guests to give their presentations. Then we will take questions from the committee members. We'll take questions from our board members, and then we'll open it up for the public to ask questions. There's two things on the agenda. We have a presentation from New Yorkers for Parks, dealing with 1% for Parks campaign, and a presentation from New York City Parks and Recreation on the reconstruction of the Amigo Playground, which is located at Third Avenue between 34th, 35th Street, adjacent from Sunset Park High School. If you're going to speak, due to the fact that we are live on YouTube, we have some mics here. Just so our viewing audience could hear you and we can record it. Just raise your hand, we'll get the mic to you to ask your question. At this time, we're gonna start with Jim Morris in Parks.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jim Morris. I'm a Director of Capital Projects for Brooklyn Parks and Operational Division. So today, like last month, we are here with another project, which is very exciting. We are amidst design. We're about halfway done with the design for Demick Playground, just on 3rd Avenue and 35th Street, right next to Sunset Park High School. So back in June, on June 22nd, we had an initial virtual input meeting for this project. It was well attended. It had a lot of different people. It was from a mayoral project from our initiatives called Community Parks Initiative. That's where it was funded. Let's see. I think if you guys have a presentation. So I just want to do a quick spiel about it, and then I'll kick it over to. So today from the Parks Department, we have some people from a different division, from our Capital Division. We have Dennis Flynn, Randy Stewart, who are our designers for this project that are overseeing consultants that we have that are going to be actually presenting this project today. We have Jim and Peter from MKW. They're going to be, I'm going to bounce it to them in a second. But like we did with, so I just want to also do a quick update for a project we presented on last month, Penn Herrera Playground. There was, at that meeting, I just wanted to kind of give you a quick update for the design on that. There was an area in Penn Herrera that we were discussing at this meeting, actually at a full board meeting, that was a handball court area that had some opportunities for different sports. And we've been kind of going back with the council member and the school about how to optimize that space, and just wanted to let everyone know that we're going to have it instead of just specifically pickleball, it's going to be kind of a multi-program space. It won't be handball anymore, but it will be soccer. It'll have lines painted down that you could play pickleball, but also you could play soccer and pretty much anything. It won't be specifically pickleball. That's something that we've been working on a little bit with the council member at the school. They felt that that was a more appropriate use of that space. I wanted to clarify that. And then, yeah, so right now we're going to do, of course, yeah, so sorry. Yeah, I remember that one. Okay, so now we're going to bounce over to Demick Playground. Again, this is, we received $7.6 million from the mayor on this one. We're about halfway through design. And what else? So as a quick reminder, so this is part of a 3-year process of a capital project. So we have 1 year of design. Then after design is done, we have 1 year of procurement, and then 1 year of construction. The site will be closed for 1 year of construction. Just want everyone to know that right up front. But we're here today to make sure that the community sees this project and make sure that everyone knows that we're building a park that everyone likes. We don't want to design a park or build a park that no one likes. So yeah, from there, I think that's pretty much it. It's pretty straightforward. We're going to do a quick presentation. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I'm going to bounce over to Peter from MKW. Peter, if you don't mind coming up. And also Jim as well. He'll be on the second half of the presentation. But it is a, you know, if anyone has any questions or anything on the actual presentation or anything like that in the screen, I could send this to anybody, and this is public knowledge. So we'll go through it. Thank you so much.
While they're making their way up here, Jim, definitely for this board, if you could send that presentation, the PowerPoint presentation you have to us, or you have it, so we could disseminate it to our board. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you for that introduction, Jim. As I mentioned, my name is Peter Clark, and I'm joined with Jim Welch, who's my colleague at MKW. We are the private consultant and the design consultant for DMX Playground.
Jerry, that's the way the screen looks. It's only half the park's logo. The screen is not cut off.
Yep. Okay, project goals, briefly going to touch on these. The first would be create a thriving public space in partnership with the school, define areas for adults and children, improve circulation. There's a lot of circulation throughout the site, so we just wanted to make sure that there are more defined routes. Upgraded play and sports equipment. I mean, a lot of the equipment out there is just pretty old, so we wanted to update that as well. Develop passive seating and gathering spaces, provide more welcoming entrances, and also try to mitigate the presence of the Gowanus Expressway. So just brief context map. You guys obviously know where the site is. It's bordered by 35th and 34th Street next to Sunset Park High School, with 3rd Ave and the I-287 overpass to the west hand side. Yep, that's okay. So flooding part of the site is in a 500-year floodplain. Next. And then these next two slides are going to talk about different flood models, one being the moderate flooding event and one being the more aggressive flooding event. And as you can see, the site in both models is not affected by this. So next, and you can skip the next one as well. Land use, there are several land uses adjacent to the site, mostly heavy industrial, but there is the Sunset Park High School to the east and some surrounding commercial as well, along with residential. Next. In terms of parks in the neighborhood context, there are a couple parks to the south and to the west, but as you can see to the north and east, there are lacking some parks. Okay, getting to the existing conditions themselves. So the site is kind of defined by this 8-foot-high chain link fence that stretches around the north, the south, and the west perimeter that really create a sense of enclosure. There are a lot of existing mature trees on site that we wanted to be very mindful of when we were designing the park. And in terms of program, the site is pretty much broken up into two main areas. You have the active recreation sports on the right-hand side, being the 3 basketball courts and the handball court. And to the left-hand side, you have more passive seating as well as playgrounds for 2 to 5, 5 to 12, and additional top swings as well. More site analysis showing just general circulation patterns throughout the project, drainage issues that we spotted, and then just classifying the site into different areas, such as the basketball courts receiving a lot of sun, the handball courts receiving morning shade but getting more sun in the afternoon, and then talking about the different circular access points into the site, a lot along the Third Avenue site as well as the 34th Street and 35th Street. Okay, tree inventory, as I mentioned previously, there are a lot of existing trees on site that we wanted to be mindful of in designing the site. You know, we feel like they bring a lot of not only great aesthetic character, but also provide a lot of shade to the park, which is very needed, especially in the hot summer months. Next. Okay, more of a technical slide. This slide just says that since we are disturbing more than 20,000 square feet of soil during construction, that we will need a permit from DEP. Go to the next one. Okay, these next couple slides, we're going to start to get into site photos. So site photo on the left-hand side is of the group seating areas that are right adjacent to Third Avenue. Photo on the right is a photo of the basketball courts. There are three, very large open space that we wanted to make sure that we were preserving, but also setting aside enough space as well for other park programs. Photo on the left-hand side of the existing spray play. As you can see, it's pretty. Yep. Photo on left-hand side of the existing spray play, and photo to the right is the existing handball walls as well. Next. Photo on the left is of the play equipment. Photo on the right is of the Gowanus Expressway. So as you can see, the Gowanus Expressway is a pretty big visual impact on the space. So trying to use planting as best we could to screen it will be something that Jim will talk a little bit about in the design. Okay, then this is the last slide for me. This will just be talking about community priorities. So as Jim mentioned earlier, we had this meeting with the community and heard a bunch of good feedback. So this slide just starts to prioritize some of the key points that we heard from that meeting. So play, active recreation, green, seating, water, noise, and engagement. For play, really focusing on creating open play, improving the playground that's currently out there, and also adding in an area for synthetic turf for multi-use area. Active recreation, really enhancing the existing basketball courts, handball, repurposing the basketball courts also for soccer as well, and maybe the potential for fitness in the future. Green, obviously preserving the existing trees that were out there and adding in as much planting as we could, preferably native. Benches offering just a variety of seating, whether that be individual or group seating. Water, improving the spray play that's currently out there, and also the drinking fountains. Noise, as we talked about, just trying to mitigate the BQE that's adjacent to the site. And then engagement, making sure that we're creating spaces that could serve a multitude of uses, such as outdoor classrooms, community events, and potentially public art. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to Jim, and he'll talk about the design itself.
Good evening, everybody. Okay, so as you can see on the screen, this is the proposed design that MKW has created for Dynamic Park. We like to think of it in three different zones, the left being the west, the center, down the center, and the right being closer to the high school. So we're going to start talking about the project from the west side, from the left side. We're going to start there because on the left side is where we have our main entrances. We have one main entrance on the north, closer to 34th Street. Actually, there's two entrances coming off of that corner area there. We didn't want to disturb the tree exactly at the corner, so we shifted it a little bit east on 34th Street and allow people to come in on two walkways into a center plaza space along the west side. There's also one entry from the south side that allows you to walk up from 35th Street up into that same center plaza space. To the left of that south walkway is a seating area with game tables as well as just bench seating, but it's a nice, probably shaded place underneath some of the existing larger trees that are there. Next over to the right would be the center area, where it gets a little bit more active. That's where we have our play areas. We have our tot swings up at the north end. Across the walkways, we then have our 2 to 5 play area, and then just to the south of that, we have our 5 to 12 area. There's shade trees all around these different play areas to help cool the areas, keep them cool and nice and fresh in the hot summer months, as well as when the leaves fall off the trees, they're mostly deciduous. There'll still be nice, fun play areas to let in that the sun in the cooler fall and winter months. The 2 to 5 play area is adjacent to that center plaza on the left. That center plaza on the left also acts as our spray play area. So that's a nice combination, nice adjacency that we have there. Moving over one bay more to the right, we have our most active area with the basketball multi-use courts, as well as the synthetic turf and the handball to the further right. The 2 basketball multi-use courts, the reason we did that, we used to have 3, but we wanted to bring a little bit more green into the area. So we maintained 2 so that it's a nice large multi-use space, whether you play wiffle ball or kickball, the school does out there, they can use that larger space there, not just for 2 basketball, but a lot of different activities by leaving the 2 courts there. The synthetic turf on the north side is really, it's not like where you're going to have a big sports game going on, synthetic turf. Don't think of it that way. It's more of a general recreation. You might be able to throw a Frisbee. You might be kind of able to lay out and hang out with your friends. Or we anticipate some of the high schoolers coming out and using that space as a very just general recreation hangout space. And then the handball courts to the right, they're going to remain as handball courts for now. We're going to reconstruct them though, just to improve them. What connects all these different spaces? Well, we said on the west side, there is that walkway from the north to the south, but from that big plaza in the center over to the handball courts, there is what we're calling the mall, which is basically 2 walkways again, with a center row of trees that connects the left side to the play areas and then to the basketball sports courts and the synthetic turf area and the handball court on the right. Let's go to the next slide. So we're going to show you now is a couple of enlargements. I know that plan was kind of an overall plan. This is the 2 to 5 play area. Anytime we're designing play areas for New York City parks, accessibility is a key feature. In this place, you can see the different ramps and some of the different features. There's at-grade play panels. The inclusive play includes areas where it's not just about getting people up onto the structure, but having opportunities for different people of different abilities to play side by side. So I think we're really accomplishing that here. You're also seeing in the play areas, we're playing with the colors, more yellows and oranges to play along with the Sunset Park colors that are associated with the high school there. So that's in the colors and in the safety surface tiles as well. There's seating around the perimeter for all the caregivers that are watching their kids in the 2 to 5 area. And as you can see on the left side there, there's 1, 2, 3 different entrances into that play area and 1 entrance from the north end from that center mall. Go to the next slide. Next, we're going to show an enlargement of the 5 to 12 play area. We'd like to show an enlargement of the 5 to 12 play area. And as things get, as the children get a little bit older, the play equipment gets a little bit more challenging. But once again, we are still focused on accessibility and inclusion in the spaces that we design. We still understand that there's going to be caregivers around the perimeter so that they can watch the children play, but we're keeping them off to the side so that they don't have to get involved in everything that's going on with their children. They can kind of let them play. We've surrounded the play areas with lots of nice vegetation. Some fencing around some of those areas just to keep the children out of some of the vegetation, but it's kind of like a controlled access. It's not actually gated, but it's controlled. There's openings and you can only go in and out in certain areas. So we think that's a nice balance of safety and freedom to move around in the park. The next enlargement is that center plaza on the left side, the west side of the park. You can see the 2 walkways coming in from the north from 34th and the 1 walkway coming in from the bottom of the page, the south. And why do we have this big open space? Well, it's a place for people to gather that don't have children necessarily, so they're not going to be going into those play areas as much. There's seating around the perimeter. We do have the spray play that'll probably be active in more of the summer months, but when it's not running on the south side, that area will just be an open plaza. Someone can stand there and perform, or groups can gather, or it can just be a big open space and people can get on the ground with their chalk or whatever and draw in there. On the north end of that open plaza, we have pebble seats, which is just a fun kind of another place for people to sit. And we think some of the teens might enjoy a place like that as once again, a hangout place for them to gather after school. What you're seeing, I guess, on the right side are a couple of examples of the spray plays. They're all going to be ground mounted, nothing vertical in terms of metal posts sticking up in the middle of the spray play area. And the bottom is showing a section, which is basically a cut through that area where you can see colorful ornamental tree on the left, some benches, the spray play in the center, and then the flagpole will be relocated, or a new flagpole will be placed to the right side of it. This is the area that we were calling the mall, the big connection between the plaza on the left and the handball on the right. And it's, you know, it's nice that it has walkways on both sides, provides access to all the different areas of the park, but it also has some nice shade trees, some of existing. The smaller ones on the right are going to be new and proposed. They'll eventually get up to the big size as well. But you can see the, you know, the game tables in there, the benches. We're going to have a drinking fountain in the center, and there'll just be some lighting in that area as well. The main walkways throughout the park will be lit. This is enlargement of the seating area in the southwest corner of the park. The big circles over top are representing the existing shade trees that are there. We'll have to plant a couple of new ones to fill it out. But really, it's just a quieter space with a nice shade canopy above it. It's going to be really a great place to sit and just hang out, relax. As Peter had mentioned, you know, the big fences around the perimeter no longer going to be there. We're going to take down the chain link fences. We're going to put a 4-foot steel picket fence around the perimeter. Some of the planting areas, as you can see with the blue fence listed there, they're going to be 2.5-foot fences. So really just to keep people out of those planted areas. 3-foot fences around the swings. And then the taller fences will be reserved to be near the sports courts. We're going to use 8 and 12-foot fences around the basketball courts, so the balls don't come into the play areas. And the handball courts, they have their traditional 16-foot fence around that. This is just grading. It's generally a flat site, and we'll pitch it and we'll try to make all the puddles go away, basically. Keeping it simple. Some of the materials we're going to be using on the ground: concrete and asphalt pavement, definitely asphalt in the basketball court areas. A lot of the walkways will be concrete pavement. We will highlight some of the areas of concrete pavement with on the bottom left, the colored concrete. Color seal coat, the orange, will be used in the basketball courts to highlight certain areas, the key or the 3-point area. And then the safety surfaces, as I had mentioned previously, the orange and the tan. Other materials that we're going to be using are a lot of New York City Park Standards materials, from the game tables. The lighting fixtures would be the Flushing Meadows fixtures, you know, standard trash receptacles. The pebble seats are the only thing that might be a little bit different, but we had those in the big open plaza on the west side of the park. Okay. We're going to try to use as much native planting as we can throughout the park. Trees that are going to provide shade for the areas, low plantings that are not going to really ruin any of the sight lines into and around the park. And we're going to try to include a lot of different seasons of color throughout the park when we plant it as well. Finally, we think by looking at this diagram on the left, the existing park is only 5% permeable. And by adding all this planting and the synthetic turf in one area, which has just a gravel base underneath it, so some of that water can also soak into that, we're going to increase permeability and, you know, and the sustainability of the park by 25%, or up to 25%, I should say. So we think that's a nice improvement just by adding all the plants that are coming into this area. So we're finishing up here with just going back to the overall slide, and I guess we'll go back to open questions. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, for your presentation. Before I open up, I just have a few just to make sure I understand what you're saying. The equipment is is it being replaced and new equipment's coming in? And will that equipment be, I know you said accessible to, all right, good. The draining, you said there was a draining issue, someone said?
There's a couple of puddles there that are depressions, so it's all gonna be regraded and newly paved in there.
That issue should be taken care of. There will be a removal of one of the basketball courts just to have more play space area? Is that what I'm hearing?
One basket. That's where the synthetic turf area will be, so
Right.
it'll be for some different types of stuff.
And my last question, and I'll open up. With the trees, there'll be some removals and some added in?
In this part, no, we had an arborist come and look at, when we had an arborist come in and look at the trees. We removed, trees that were, they're already gone, that were in poor health. All the rest of the trees that are currently there now will remain. And we'll be adding new trees.
Thank you. I'll open up for questions for the committee.
Hi, how you doing, guys? My name is Gabino Morales. So I'm looking at at the layout here. I'm just wondering where the benches are gonna be. Like, where are they gonna be located at? I know at the basketball courts, we have families, members, they're playing, their family members playing, we need, how are they gonna be sitting around the basketball courts? Or for the handball courts, do we have any seating around that area? For people who are not actually playing?
There are some benches along the south side of the basketball courts. And I think we were going to include a couple of benches on the side of the handball court, where there's, I don't know if we can. I'm pointing to the screen here, and you can see, I guess, there's a top tree, then there's a little brown space that's a bench that could look into the handball courts. And then similarly on the south side, there'll be another bench location there. So the handball court has two benches looking into it, and the basketball courts have at least two benches looking into it.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening. I'm Carmen Rivera. I just wasn't clear because you mentioned the importance of screening for the gowanus, both visually and noise. So I'm not clear from your presentation exactly how you're going to accomplish that.
I don't think we can officially really get rid of all of the noise there, so we're kind of taking it out of play by adding more vegetation on the west side of the park. So we are adding more trees, definitely at the higher level. So visually, it would take out some of the gowanus there, and kind of we're hoping for more out of sight, out of mind approach to it, because we can't build anything that large to really take away that noise. But by planting more trees, we're trying to kind of visually screen it more, and it's going to work better in the summer months and when the leaves are on the trees.
I didn't see any swings, but you had mentioned swings. Are there going to be any swings on the grounds?
Yes, there will be swings, and they're going to be in a similar location to where they are currently.
And you are removing the chain link fence?
Around the perimeter, yes. We will keep a little bit of chain link fence at the
Thank
ends of the
you.
basketball courts.
Thank you.
Hey, so firstly, my name is Dan. This is my first Parks meeting. I'm a member to the committee, so glad to be here. Personally, I'll say that I really do like this design from what you've said, especially the thing about the fence. I echo that for sure. One question I have was there any discussion around adding in an older adult playground, or older adult gym, by which I mean we have it in Sunset Park, the workout machines that are free to use and accessible and available for everybody.
Was considered, but due to budget constraints right now, we're kind of sticking with what we have. If the budget change, not if the budget changes. At this point in design, we're not fully done yet. So if anything changes to benefit our design, so that we don't have to spend as much, that is one of the things that we look at to add.
Has the project been fully funded?
Yes.
Thank you.
So if it's fully funded, that means that due to Mayor Adams' budget cuts across the whole board, those budget cuts is not going to affect this project. Is that correct?
Okay, we might have some board members and committee members online. Jeremy, if you could help.
Aaron Rolnick.
Hi, thank you for coming. This is a great presentation and I love the work that you guys do. And this is a beautiful drawing and a beautiful plan, but I want to know, I think it was the first or second slide, you mentioned that you were gonna do this in cooperation you're gonna involve the high school students, and I'd like to know more about that, please. What did they suggest that you are incorporating into the design?
Sure. So if I go back to the beginning, it says involvement with the school, which we are involving. So I already spoke with the principal of, so there's actually a new principal of Sunset Park High School, but spoke with them recently, met with them as well as the phys ed department and the athletic program there, just to make sure that we're on the same page. You know, a lot of schools, especially since COVID, like at Penn and Herrera, like some other sites we were talking about, they use the site a lot more vigorously than they have in the past. And part of the reasoning for the turf was from their suggestion that they wanted a little bit more variety in the way that area. Right now, they use mostly what's on the east side, because frankly, the playground on the west side, it's a high school. There's not a lot of kids using play equipment right now, but we plan on changing that by kind of reinvigorating the site, getting kids all over the area, no matter the age, 5 through 12 and up. You know, there's things for all kids to do. So we've been talking with the school and making sure that they know that because they use the handball courts for volleyball, and there's no sightline issue like at the other site because it's perpendicular to 3rd Avenue. So you could see from the school right across the street or right across the site. So they use the handball a lot. We're going to keep that. The turf area, they wanted to do it so they could do a little bit more different programming. They might do a kick around soccer for soccer. Soccer is really popular there. And they use the basketball courts for all different kind of stuff right now. So they didn't actually mind the elimination of the 3rd basketball court. So when we say involvement with the school, we were kind of speaking not only with the students, but also with the administration of the school to make sure that they know what's going on. And they're very excited by the plan.
Well, the reason I asked is I usually support everything you do, and I don't expect you to redo the whole design, but I actually think it's not the right use for this space. I have raised 4 children in this neighborhood. They're adults now, and I can tell you there's nothing for teens. And I think that something like a skate park would be much more appropriate, or something that they could really exercise and utilize to their benefit. Most of the schools in the country, most of the high schools have soccer fields, baseball fields, football fields, everything. New York City high school kids got nothing. And I really think that it should just be much more geared to the teens, because they're vulnerable, and that's the age that they're most vulnerable. And I just really think we need to focus on them a little more. And I think that, I hate to be negative on your idea, because it's a beautiful drawing and it could be lovely, but I think that also the seating is a really bad idea, because you just get, I have gone there with my kids when they were little and picked up all the beer bottles and detritus from people just hanging out. It attracts homeless, and they just take up all those benches, and it's not pleasant.
Totally understand that, no, we could certainly look into that, but all I could really say is what came up in the initial input meeting. Skateboarding didn't really come up in the initial meeting, but we can speak with the school further and ask them about activating with more of their age group with the high school kids. But I'm going to defer a little bit to our design division, but totally understood, and we'll speak with the consultants as well, but totally understand what you're saying.
Thank you.
Mary Eister.
Hi, am I on or am I muted? Okay, I'm on.
I hear you.
Yeah, great. I think the design looks great. It really looks very nice to me. I'm not that familiar with this particular park though, so there may be issues that I don't know. I have just two small questions. I know you said it's going to be completely closed at some point. What is the estimate or the time frame for the closure, and how long did you say that would be?
Typical construction for a New York City park like this is about 1 year. So we're envisioning, we're in through the design process now. When we're done with our design process, there'll be 1 year of procurement roughly, and then it'll still be open during that time. But then once a contractor is basically given the site to work on, they'll need that 1 year to work on it, start to finish.
And so I assume during that time, the school students won't have really an outdoor activity area at all. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. One other question I have, and this was just on the slide where you were showing the fencing. It appeared that maybe I missed it, that the north side of the basketball courts, it looked like it wasn't fenced off from the walkway.
That's correct. We didn't really think a fence was needed in those areas. The play, the loose balls, they happen everywhere, but primarily at the ends is where we're most concerned about that. So we're okay with that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Sylvia Augusto.
Hi, this looks really beautiful, but I am also concerned about the youth. And not only that, but we have young adults who are mentally challenged, who have a program somewhere around there, and they come to the park. And I was thinking of the adult gym, the outside gym would be appropriate also for those young people, because sometimes they just sit there, and it would just be great to have them have an outdoor gym for them and for the students at the Sunset High School. But everything else is gorgeous. It's beautiful. And thank God, we've been waiting a long time for this park to have an uplift and, a face, whatever it's called. Facelift. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. We heard that comment one other time already, so we'll take it back and we'll talk with the folks at New York City Parks about that.
We have Pat Joan.
So at this time, your design does not include for a completely wheelchair and any other disability accessibility?
The park will be fully accessible.
Thank you.
Have any questions from the public?
Is on?
If you could just give your name
All right,
and,
yeah, I am a board member, Ryan Smith. This is more of a curiosity thing, but when the city is gaining a better knowledge of rain capture and how that works with our ecosystem, when parks like this are created, are rain gardens and things like that taken into consideration in order to capture more of the natural water that just flows right into our sewer system?
Yes, rain gardens are being considered. We are about to start some geotechnical investigations to really, it doesn't really matter what things look like so much on the surface. It's really what's underground. So we're going to do a little bit of geotechnical investigations. And if it's possible, we can use some of the planting areas that are shown on the plans as some of those rain gardens.
That's cool. Yeah, and I think using the native plants and any deep-rooted grasses that keep that water and help too. Cool. Thanks.
okay.
Hi, Julie Steinbrockway, Center for Family Life in Sunset Park and a partner at Sunset Park High School. And we were part of the original Demic design team when the high school was being built in 2005 and 6 and so on. So we're glad that we're at this point. I want to echo a few points that have been made. I think we need to seriously look at the outdoor gym type facility, physical fitness, as a person who's in that high school every day. I know that that is a need that would be met, could be met. A couple of things that came up in the first go round in June that I have not heard mentioned, and I just wanted to bring back. One was a question about shade structure in the handball court. There was a concern about how to make that a little bit more of a shady area, even though it's a concrete. I didn't know if there was any, canvas tarp. Some ideas were tossed around, so I wanted to just bring that back. There was a question about engaging students in stewardship and being able to work with the gardening aspect of the park. We have a lot of students involved in our green club, and we have a lot of students involved in hands-on science that I think if there is some way to engage those science classes in the design, during the development phase and then in maintaining the park, we had always envisioned that there would be a club that would adopt work in partnership with parks. And I haven't heard that mentioned. I just want to make sure we don't lose track of that as a desire for the high school. There's also a question about the benches, and there was a discussion about, I know there's a concern about who would be in those benches, but there was a question about benches that wouldn't have backs on them so that you could see both sides of the park and sit either direction. It seemed like very traditional park furniture that we were talking about and very traditional park playground. I live near down by the water where they just did a playground that had playground equipment I had never seen in a New York City park, and it was so dynamic and exciting. I was a little just wondering about whether we were getting within the budget zone of things and what would be the difference in cost of upgrading some of those things, and whether we could advocate as a community for additional resources to think about upgrading.
Okay, I'll take I'll take the one about the shading the handball courts. Putting a structure over the handball courts is just big, and once again, considering we have a limited budget, it didn't seem like the best use of resources. We did put on the west side of the handball court. So the east side of the handball court has shade from the building itself and from the south as well. On the left side, we put columnar trees in there, which will get about maybe 12 feet wide, but they'll grow a good 30 feet tall. So they'll provide shade into the courts in the afternoons on there. In terms of some of the interaction with the high school students, if you want
to. You're totally right. Thank you for highlighting that, because that this is so connected to Sunset Park High School that it would be a shame not to involve it more thoroughly. What I can say is, we're still in the design process of this stuff. We're getting the bare bones of what we need here. Anything programmatic comes a little bit further on down the line. There is a wealth of opportunity to get involved in terms of like having an ownership, especially over what we call this a jointly operated playground. And in Sunset Park High School, getting the kids involved in more of a programmatic way having a zone for them is something that, that's kind of what we were talking about. And, this is a bigger JOP, but it's not huge. And we're trying to fit a lot into this site all at the same time because, not only does the school use it for just an unprogrammed way with the basketball court where it's just, they're kind of just hanging out and stuff like that. It is still a playground, and there's still families around here that need all ages. So that includes toddlers up to 12, that's that area. And with that, and then considering also an area that can be unproblematic where they can sit, kids that can hang out, because that's where that seating area is. And you're right, that is an area that also could attract people that are just hanging out, but we do need to have people sitting and stuff like that. So that being said, also all of that stuff with also an adult fitness is tricky to fit all this within the budget that we have, which is already. So they're certainly going to brainstorm. They're the consultants, that's their job. However, we are fitting quite a bit in here, and it's tricky to fit all different programmatics and all different ages, and including like a skate park, all these different things. So there is some stuff that might need to be sacrificed. That's one part of it. Not necessarily sacrificed, but it's like a lot of different stuff that we can fit in here. But I think it's a great job to fit all the ages that are in here, because there is, young kids all the way up to accommodating the high schoolers where we can, which is more the basketball side and the handball and stuff like that. That being said, the programmatic park, we do have partnerships for parks that leads that kind of stuff, that has more of a involvement on the ground with people. And that's something that we can certainly set up as a kind of quasi ownership with the students and having kind of a learning opportunity. That would be something that's a little bit further down that we can't necessarily right now. It's not that we can't, it's just more, we would have to suss out exactly what that would mean, because programmatic wouldn't be necessarily involved in the capital process. I guess that's so to speak. So, but we do have opportunities for the kids to get involved. There's a couple of different parks that we have where they've already set up kind of a usage base or usage area where they're going to have outdoor classrooms, outdoor seating, stuff like that. That is already an opportunity that's kind of built in with some seating area. But we could talk a little bit offline about, what that may mean for the future in terms of having involvement with the class, that it's like a green class or something like that. That could be something inside, if that answers the question. Sorry, I don't have a specific answer, but we could talk about that. That's fine.
I just have another question about the basketball courts. On the north side, there's not going to be a fence. Am I correct on that? There's not going to be a fence. On the south side, there'll be an entrance to walk into the basketball courts? From this, okay. Thank you. Any? Yeah. Okay. Just, if you can, Joe, pass that over.
Thanks again. I have two quick, I guess, curiosities. One, has there been any study about who uses the park currently? And I think that would help inform, especially around age, because we're talking about, are we gearing it towards seniors? It looks like a very different park than if we're gearing it towards teenagers, et cetera. So study about usage or info about usage, that's one. And two, this may be way down the line, but curious about if there's been conversations already about labor, specifically around hiring subcontractors, and if so, has there been conversations around who, and hiring local and hiring union and hiring MWBs and all that sort of set of conversations? I'd be curious for an update on too.
The user group really is most like depends on how you look on the user group. School uses it the most, I would say, in terms of the east side of the park. They use it every day. They use it for gym class. They use it for rival dismissal. And there's kids mostly around the day, like hanging out, talking about it. There's families around the area that grow up using the playground. But at the same time, there's people that, it's a large community group that all different people, all different ages, all different that. But right now, I think it's mostly the school, and then people along 3rd Avenue, all different people collect on the western side of the park. It needs some love. The park needs some love. So I think the user group will just automatically change when it's a new park, because there's new play equipment. Some young families might see that there's some updated equipment that they would be more comfortable bringing their kids with, because right now it's a little bit tired. There's not that many families using it right now. And then secondly, we're still in the design process. So that would be more the procurement process. We are a leader in MWE hiring contractors. However, it's not exactly yet where we're at. But if there's more questions about people that you're interested in or anything like that, getting that, I can give you some information about how they could sign up to be a contractor for through the Parks Department, through the city system as well. So none of that is not figured out just yet. We're still working on the overall design, but further down the line when they get that, that's something we can talk about as well.
You have a question in the back? No?
Jay Geary, you can unmute yourself now.
Yeah, hi, how are you? Jay Geary, I live on Fourth Avenue now. I'm closing on a house shortly on 33rd. So I'm very curious about a sort of the longer term, not expectations, but outlook here. And I was curious about the flood plan, I guess, that was mentioned early on, about, you know, where it is on the current sort of moderate versus more aggressive flood plan. And I was just curious if you could speak a little bit more about what those moderate and aggressive models were and how they're generated, and that, just because it seems very, you know, I know in terms of evacuation zones and stuff, it's right there in a flood zone. So I don't know what, I guess how that was taken into account. And then I just had a second question on scheduling, which was mainly, it sounds like the plan is 3 years, 1 year planning, 1 year procurement, 1 year execution, and planning is finished. So are we looking at like the calendar year 2025 for the closure for construction? Yeah, so those are my two questions. Appreciate it.
I'm gonna let the consultant speak on the flooding, but you're correct. So we started this in spring of 23. So that would mean a spring of roughly, hypothetically, spring 25 closure to spring 26 closure. So they would lose it for 1 calendar year, not lose it, but you know what I mean, close it.
As for the flooding, the maps that you see up here are nothing that we've generated on our own, no specific studies. These are taken from New York City public documents that are available. So if you're looking for more detailed information about them, I'm sorry, I don't have the exact website handy right now, but it's you know, I'm sure going through newyorkcity.gov, you'll be able to find the different flooding maps that we were able to get. But it's pretty much standard publicly available information.
Have any more questions for Parks from online? Any from the floor?
Hello, yes, so my question is, I just left my mind, I'm sorry, yeah, I'm sorry.
Sylvia Augusto.
Can we have these plans sent to us also? Like this whole
We already have it, Sylvia.
Point.
We'll send it to you tomorrow.
thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry. So I was just gonna ask, are we gonna be able to see the final plans with the chairman, please? Parks, are the final plans, are you guys gonna come back to us so we could see what the final plans are and how it's gonna actually look like?
You know, we were speaking on this a little back and forth. So I mean, I guess you know, the process for this is typically Parks Committee, then we bring it to the full board, who then we would move forward with design. If there is a motion to speak on something that you would like to officially change or anything like that, we could certainly bring back information. But you know, we are subject to a budget. We are subject to this a certain layout to fit everything that we feel like hit all the marks that came up in the initial scope meeting. We do feel like that it hit that to get everything. We understand that there's, you know, desire for more involvement, but you know, is that something that we want to? I'm just curious because if I guess my question is where we would move forward from here, I guess. And it, not to say that bring that part back up, but we would bring it back to show you the final design. But we would be trying to get a full board approval off of a similar design to this right now. So that is the answer.
I do appreciate that. At least just so we could see for the final plans.
No, yeah, 100%.
Not to just maybe change anything, but just to see what the.
Okay.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
We will definitely, after we present it to the board, if there is any amendments to what was given to us, we would definitely have that in the letter that plan is brought back to us so we could see it. All right, so we'll make sure we'll have that in the letter.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I'm one that always thinking about the money. If there is a delay in approving the plan, is there a possibility of a shortfall with the budget cut coming?
No, we'll be honest. The Parks Department is getting quite a bit of cuts. More programmatic and more staff wise. We are, it is.
You don't have a budget to begin with.
Yeah, we barely have a budget, so we can't. We're subject to New York City budgetary things all the time. We don't really know the full extent, but I would say this project's already in design, so I wouldn't necessarily worry about anything like that. We are, we want to please the community. We're here to make sure that not the main stakeholders, of which you all are, the school, parents, teenagers, all these people, we want to make sure that this is a project that they'll enjoy and things like that. But, I don't think it's on the chopping block or anything like that. I can't say for sure, but I don't want to install any fear that this is like, that this is going to be not happening or anything like that. It's just more, the budget is the budget right now. So, I don't think there'll be any delays or anything like that, but yeah, that's kind of, you're right. That is there. We are going through some budgetary issue things right now.
Thanks.
All right, Jim, you and your team will leave it there. Thank you for the presentation.
No problem. So we can look into some of these things a little bit more and bring it back to you if you'd like. Some of these the inquiries.
If you could get that to us before our the board meeting,
sure,
will be great, because then we could bring it back.
December 20th. Okay.
We could bring it back to the board.
Okay.
You heard some questions about adult.
Sure, we'll look into it with the budget we do have, things like that. Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Victor.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Now, our next presentation is from Carl, from New Yorkers for Parks. Thank you for joining us today. Oh, Jeremy, you have it? Because my first question was going to be make sure we get the presentation. So you have the presentation. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Carl Nelson. I'm with New Yorkers for Parks. A little bit about us. We're the only independent parks advocacy organization. We were founded in 1908, and we advocate for equitable development, expansion, maintenance of parks throughout New York City. We work through a combination of research, partnerships, and advocacy. We're the co-founders of the Playfair Coalition. This is a coalition of nearly 500 park stewardship groups, volunteer groups, friends of groups, conservancies, and sustainably minded nonprofits throughout the city, working together to advocate for increased parks funding and championing equitable park system in the city. We co-founded the coalition along with the New York League of Conservation Voters and District Council 37, which is the Parks Workers Union, and we work closely with Parks Committee Chair Shaker Krishnan. This is the coalition. Next slide. Some of our recent research, we released the 1% for Parks Impact Report. This is an in-depth look at what an increase in NYC Parks funding to 1% of the total city expense budget, what that funding increase would mean for the Parks Department, Parks workers, and the New Yorkers who use our park system. Obviously, I'll be speaking a little bit more about that in a moment. We also released the open space profiles. These are snapshots of available open space, tree canopy, park accessibility in each community district, alongside public health data and demographic data. And this is a tool that advocates can use to advocate for improving and expanding parkland on the local level. Next slide, please. I'm here to talk about our primary campaign, 1% for Parks. We're calling on the mayor to increase funding for NYC Parks maintenance and operations to 1% of the total city expense budget. So this is an increase from around 600 million currently to $1 billion in a $100 billion budget. This is something that the mayor has committed to repeatedly, obviously has not followed through on, so we're trying to build broad support for this initiative. Next slide. To understand where this 1% number came from, it's helpful to look at the history of the city budget for parks. Up until the 1970s, NYC Parks received around 1.4% of the annual operating budget. During the fiscal crisis in the 1970s, many different agencies were forced to make drastic budget cuts to avoid bankruptcy and the fiscal cliff. Since then, however, in the decades since, NYC Parks remains just at 0.6% of the total city budget, while our economy and population have grown. So this isn't a radical ask. It has historic precedent, and we're trying to return to that baseline of that 1%. You can see where we're falling behind when you compare the growth of the Parks Department budget to the growth of other city agency budgets, as well as the total NYC expense budget. Other agencies have grown by as much as 165%, while Parks has only grown by 72%. So we want to be keeping pace with city budget growth overall. We also spend significantly less on our Parks Department than other competing major cities. Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, Minneapolis, Chicago, all spend between 1% and 5%, despite having significantly less parkland than we do. Parks are a public-facing agency, so the bulk of the maintenance and operation funding goes towards staffing lines. But as the population in New York City has grown significantly, meaning more people using these parks, these spaces are more heavily trafficked and in higher demand. The staff available to maintain them due to this historic disinvestment has plummeted. So you see the results in the quality and the programming that's able to be provided. Just a striking comparison, Parks has one gardener for every 114 acres, while San Francisco and Chicago have one gardener for every 18 acres. So the result is better maintained spaces and just generally better quality of life for the people using those spaces when we invest in the staff. NYC Parks maintains all the rec centers throughout the city. At their best, these can be, vibrant community centers with programming, athletic facilities, and programming available for children, seniors, et cetera. But due to a sharp decline in funding and staff to take care of these rec centers, it's difficult for them to live up to their potential in the communities that they serve. Another striking comparison, the NYPD overtime budget is significantly more than the entire maintenance and operation budget for all 30,000 acres of parkland. We surveyed the park stewards, people who are taking care of local parks in the Play Fair Coalition. They said that they're seeing a market increase in park usage year-round, specifically outside of the traditional busy season. So these places are in high demand. They also reported an increase in parks users feeling unsafe in their parks. And this aligns with what the mayor released in his preliminary management report about increase in reported crimes against persons and property. We believe that this is an issue of primarily of understaffing. Currently, there's one Parks Enforcement Patrol officer for every 303 acres of parkland. So, we don't think it has to do with necessarily involving a police presence in parks, but we think that the presence of Parks Enforcement Patrol, who make sure people are following the rules, as well as just regular city parks workers, sanitation workers, just that uniform presence can make people feel a greater sense of security, and just these spaces be better maintained and better monitored on the day-to-day. Just a few of the clear benefits of an increase in parks funding that we pulled out of our 1% for Parks impact report. It means safer and cleaner parks. It means more accessible parks. It means quicker repairs. When you build a new park like the one that was just discussed, and then you don't have the maintenance budget to maintain it, these deferred maintenance costs become larger capital projects down the line. It's great if we can build new parks, but if we can't actually maintain them, we're just going to be pouring unnecessary amounts of money into them for things that could have been avoided. Our park system is also our best defense against extreme weather and climate change. Our park system ideally can act as a sponge. So when we maintain these spaces, they can serve us in that way as well. They also clean air, they reduce the urban heat island effect, and they capture CO2. And another major benefit of this is for the parks workforce itself. It's improved safety conditions for workers and making these staffing lines good middle-class jobs that have longevity and are quality, as a quality place to work. Parks obviously have benefits for our mental and physical health, and they also generate and save taxpayers billions of dollars each year through environmental benefits, public health, and economic benefits, especially through tourism. They're a major draw to people coming to our city. Mayor Adams has repeatedly publicly supported this initiative as a borough president, as a mayoral candidate, and as mayor. He has obviously not followed through, so we're holding his feet to the fire as best we can. 44 council members are also in support of this initiative, and no council members are opposed. We also have now close to 13,000 petition signatures, individual New Yorkers signing on in support of this funding campaign. So here today, to call on the committee, I suppose, to deliver the recommendation to the board to write a letter in support of this initiative. We've been going, presenting to every single community board. We're trying to build broad-based support to show that this is a priority for New Yorkers. We have so far 36 community boards signed on, and we would be honored if you would join us in this. And I'll also just add that, in the current budget cuts that parks are facing, combined cuts over the next series of multiple rounds of cuts equaling about 15%. That's like approximately a $75 million cut to the parks department budget. We're looking at significant cuts to the staffing lines that there already are. So building support around this initiative and showing concrete support for transformative investment, we think is one means of resisting those untenable cuts. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a quick question. You have support from the council, am I correct? That you said that? And I know that parks, just listening, has been taking a hit when it comes to cuts. Has this been brought to the mayor? And if it has been brought to his mayor, what has been their response? Just pretty much, we'll look at it and then that's it?
The council members who we've reached out to, like I said, 44 of those council members have vocally voiced support for this initiative. I think it's a question of when it comes at the budget negotiations, whether this is an item that they see, that New Yorkers see as a priority. Obviously, it has been pushed aside in the interest of other funding priorities since. So, which is why we're trying to build that broad-based coalition support and kind of have a long-term strategy for showing that support in individual communities as well as in the council.
From the committee? No?
I know we don't have a quorum to vote, but I would like to propose that at our full board meeting, we ask for them to vote for a letter of support.
Yeah. And we will do that at the meeting.
Mary Ister?
I know this wouldn't make a huge difference, but do your numbers and percentages and so forth include the Central Park Conservancy and the Prospect Park Alliance? For example, I mean, I realize those are two examples that are limited probably in numbers and certainly in terms of what parks are impacted, but I just wondered if your figures include those employees.
Right, so our figures speak to the Parks Department budget, specifically just the public funding for the budget, which doesn't include the Conservancy staffing lines, which are those privately managed funded lines. So this 1% campaign is primarily about parks equity because the majority of neighborhood parks throughout New York City, smaller parks, don't have conservancies. They rely entirely on the funding available through the city parks department. So they rely on those depleted staffing lines and those reduced resources. So part of the purpose of the initiative is calling attention to the lack of funding that those non-conservancy parks receive.
I wasn't suggesting that the numbers for the Conservancy and the Alliance necessarily should change anything other than it might be an important footnote that, yeah, that's not part of it, but it doesn't make that much difference. And I agree with Joan. I think that we should support it.
Thank you. And yeah, I hear that. Understood.
Got a question?
And when we talk about the motion for the general board meeting, does it have to be from the Parks Committee or could it generally be anyone? All right. Well, thank you so much. Definitely love it so much. Any board member. Okay, perfect. Yeah, definitely agree everyone here for our general board meeting to definitely, if it gets brought up, to vote yes, because definitely agree. I feel like the parks have been getting cut, and the fact that we have seen the Parks Department every time they do create a new park, they always tend to tear down those old, not taking care of trees, and no wonder why they're not really taken care of because we don't really have the staffing. And then if we do, those trees would actually be saved. And the trees that they tend to take out are the old living ones that tend to be decades old. And these are the trees that we desperately need, speaking because we have the BQE. Those are the trees that are really helping mitigate the pollution from the BQE. And I feel like more money for the parks, help those combat climate change specifically, because here in Sunset Park, we literally see it every day, in my opinion. But definitely agree. Encourage everyone here to vote yes for December 20th.
Thank you. I just pass it back to the doctor for there.
Just a quick question, if we wanted to access the petition as individuals to sign, individually, do that.
I can send that around to the emails that I have. However, you can access the petition at playfair.nyc. That's PLAYFAIR.NYC. And in addition, we also have, you'll be able to find it on our website. A link to a letter writing form where you can easily write directly to the mayor, opposing the current round of budget cuts. So all of these things are kind of working in tandem strategically to both mitigate the current cuts that parks are threatened by and chart a path towards transformative investment.
Other questions? Lay behind.
Yes, this is gonna be one last question. I do wanna bring up at the last meeting where we were putting our input for the new park on 34th Street, the Emmett Playground. We did suggest restrooms for the playground. I forgot to ask if they put that into the design. I don't think I heard nothing about that, so maybe we could make a motion on the board meeting to maybe support a restroom area for children's and everybody on the board during the board meeting, maybe perhaps.
Definitely, when the motion is made, that should be added in the motion, so we could include it in the letter.
I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Another thing is that the park's maintenance and operation budget goes towards maintaining bathrooms, which often end up closed for long periods of time.
Exactly. Thank you. Exactly.
Any questions, Anna? Any questions from the floor? All right, so I want to thank you for joining us here today, giving us this presentation. We will take this information back to the board. We will hopefully get a motion from the floor for a letter of support. And if we do, we will let you know how that went.
And we have a template letter of support and a resolution available, which I'll send around after, follow up with that, which can be passed along to just kind of expedite that too.
I appreciate that. Anything you have that will let the board make a sound decision, that would be good for us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us today. And thank you everyone for being here. I'm going to close the meeting at 7:55. Thank you all. Thank you all online for joining us today. Everyone have a good day.